Boom! We live, evening all. So yeah, welcome everyone to episode 22, Shark Attack Case Files. Yeah, today we're going to go to Tasmania, which is obviously at the southern end of Australia. We're going to go to Lachlan Island, which is here, Lachlan Island, Lachlan. I'm going to call it Lachlan Island. So there's an attack that just took place just north of Lachlan Island. So in terms of statistics, in particular, all these attacks here around Tasmania since it was colonised back in the penal days, it's had 6 fatalities, all by great whites, and I think it's like 12 attacks, 6 fatalities. So yeah, and all these attacks are worth documenting. So we'll probably end up covering all of these, so that they're all pretty interesting attacks. But like I said, this is the one. This attack here we're going to cover today took place off Lachlan Island, Tasmania, 25th of July 2015. So not that many years ago, only 7 years ago. And the victim was a 46-year-old male, Damien Johnson. He was hooker diving, and he was attacked by a large great white shark roughly 10 o'clock in the morning. So he was in about 12 meters of water, which is about 40 feet, and he was about 750 meters off the shoreline. The moon was in the first quarter phase. Water temperature there is pretty cold, well, 12 to 13 degrees, which is 53 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit. Injury was catastrophic, fatal injury, and the basic narrative is a father and his 20-year-old daughter Olivia were twin hooker diving for scallops. So yeah, here's a more close map, just in this sort of like inlet area. There's Lachlan Island, and these are actually the exact coordinates of where this attack took place, so to the meter. And before we get into the main detail of the attack or the main narrative, it's just worth noting that this attack took place on a Saturday, but on the previous day, 24 hours earlier, in exactly the same location, there was a large great white shark was noted in the exact position that Mr. Johnson was attacked. And actually, there was 2 divers in the area, a guy called Danny Smith and a guy called Wade Cleary. They were diving together for scallops, and they'd noticed the shark. And actually, while they were down there diving, the shark actually came up behind Cleary and bumped him on the back of the head. So it was a close call for that guy for sure. And then and as I said, they noted that the shark had been in the area for about a week. Other people had spotted it, but they were only able to warn people with larger boats that had the VHS radio. So when Mr. Johnson and Olivia went out on their small boat, they had no VHS radio, so they were unaware that this shark was in the area, or they were completely unaware that the shark had actually bumped another scallop diver 24 hours before. So yeah, I'll go into the detail of this particular attack. So yeah, Mr. Johnson and Olivia travelled to the location north of Lachlan Island. Yes, it's well known scallop patch, and they dived for approximately 1 hour in a twin hooker line configuration. So they're diving together, collecting the scallops. Yeah, and as the pair returned to the surface, they actually stopped at a depth of approximately 4 meters for about a period of 5 minutes, just for the safety reasons, to avoid any pressure related illness like the bends. And then the diving location was actually, like I mentioned, the same as Smith and Cleary's the previous afternoon. So Mr. Johnson and Olivia had dived using this hooker line. They'd come back up to the surface, but then Mr. Johnson had actually re-entered the water for a quick dive. So he'd actually gone back down on his own, and he'd left his daughter in the boat. It's a very, very small boat, like I mentioned. And then after a period of about approximately 25 to 30 minutes, obviously Olivia became worried where her dad had got to. He'd not resurfaced. And after contacting her mother by a mobile phone at about 8 minutes past 10, she obviously had a phone signal out there. She didn't know what to do. She started to obviously panic and worry about her dad. So she actually re-entered the water, because she'd made observations at the time that she couldn't see any air bubbles coming up to the surface from her father's diving activity. So obviously this increased her concern. So she didn't have the regulator because her dad had gone down with both lines. So she actually had to put on a snorkel and a mask, uh, to then get back in the water. So yeah, brave young lady. So she got back in the water, and then what she done is she swam along the airline. The airline was draped over the surface of the water. And then at a point, it would suddenly go down. So she swam along the hose line, which was obviously floating on the surface of the water, until a point in which it descended into the water. So she done this, and then she pulled her face, sort of down into the water. And it is when she broke the surface of the water, and as she swam down, she sort of through the gloom, she just saw her father was about 10 meters away. He was face up in the water, and he was just being held in the jaws of a massive great white shark. And she observed that he was not wearing his mask. There was no bubbles emanating from him, and she could see that it was just his upper torso and his face, and his legs were completely gone. So yeah, horrendous. I can just imagine that moment she broke the surface through the gloom and swam down, and then yeah, as her eyes adjusted, that's what she saw. It's absolutely hideous. So she immediately swam the 50 meters back to the dinghy. So imagine that, you've just seen that, and you've got to swim 50 meters back to the dinghy. But actually, she kept her cool, which is astonishing. So she kept her cool, and she had the presence of mind to actually reduce her splashing, which is obviously what you need to do in that situation, just to avoid attracting the shark back to herself, which is definitely a possibility. So once she came back to the once she came back to the boat, she immediately obviously let off a flare just to try and attract some attention from the other divers in the area, which obviously worked. So other divers came in. They put her they put her on board one of the other bigger boats, and then some of the other divers managed to pull the line up and retrieve Mr. Johnson's body. So they secured the body, secured their smaller boat, and then they took everything, yeah, back to the shore. Uh, so obviously, and then the police were called, and then the rest of the services came in, and some of the other fishermen, yeah, like I said, retrieved the body. But yeah, nothing else was ever found, and there wasn't any evidence that the shark was there. The shark just basically disappeared after that point, having like been there a week, which is quite amazing. So yeah, they performed a detailed autopsy on this body of Mr. Johnson. Yeah, and there was some conclusions in the coroner's report, which I can go through here. And yeah, there was two tooth scrapes on the plastic weight buckle, and Mr. Johnson's left femur had scrape marks which were consistent with the serrated detentions of a great white. Yeah, and the injuries sustained by Mr. Johnson and the damage to the diving gear suggest at least two major bites coming from separate angles. One diagonally across his legs, which resulted in amputation of both legs, and then just above the knee joints, and the second across the right shoulder and torso, which is normally what you see from shark attacks. This is classic predation. And then the estimates of the tooth base width based on measurements taken for the diving gear, so yeah, suggests the shark from the bite information here. It was probably, yeah, but it was definitely over 4 meters, this shark, so probably a 14 or 15 footer. So it was a decent sized shark at the minimum estimates. Yeah, so it appeared in this attack. Yeah, like I said, I've put this slide together here. So what they think happened is that he was on the bottom picking the scallops, and just what happened the day before to the two other divers. He would have been on the bottom The shark would have been circling, and the shark would have known he was there, and it would have been just waiting, just keeping an eye on him, just interested in what was going on. Obviously, with the bubbles and the hooker line going up. And then what they think happened is as he was going back to the surface, when they sit in the mid water, the shark came up and attacked him in mid water. And the first attack would have hit him across the middle, which is consistent with the strategy, the hunting strategy. It would have bit him in half pretty much, and then obviously the shark would have let him bleed out, because the main cause of death here was exsanguination, which is obviously loss of blood. And then once he'd bled out, the shark had came back and bit him again, on the torso and the head, to finish him off. So yeah, I mean that attack is a nasty one for me, just because of how brave the daughter was to get back in the water and try and swim out to find her dad. Lovely drop. Yeah, so she swam out only to be confronted by a shark having killed her father, which is incredible, really, to witness that and to go through that. So yeah, hideous stuff. And then, like I said, the local authorities made no attempt to find this shark, because the sharks are protected in this area, so they had no interest in that. And shark attacks are extremely rare here, yeah, like you see from the statistics. But but the sharks are there. So yeah, massive blood loss. And just on one final note there, just on that blood loss thing. So the results of this coroner report is exsanguination, blood loss. But there's you can actually die of like hypovolic shock, which is like catastrophic blood loss. If you lose in one go like over 40% of your blood, you can die instantly. But in this case, he died of exsanguination, which I believe is like a longer process. So this is what's pretty bad about a lot of these attacks, where the sharks hit them in this same strategy mid water, bite them in half, and then leave them to bleed out. Yeah, you know that it's going to take a couple of minutes to bleed to death, basically, unless you die of hypovolic shock, when you'll die instantly, pretty much. So yeah, bear that one in mind next time you're in the water. Laters.